O Canada, our home and native land. This is how the Canadian national anthem begins in English. The original lyrics were in French, and they are not translations of each other. In French, the anthem starts this way: O Canada, terre de nos aïeux. Translated properly, it says, O Canada, land of our ancestors. Land of our ancestors. The ancestors that we have let down horribly. Recently, you may have heard, or maybe you haven't, that Canada may not actually be one of the kindest countries there ever has been. In May of this year, 2021, there was a horrifically sad discovery in the city of Kamloops, British Columbia. The remains of 215 children were found in an unmarked mass grave. You may be wondering, does Canada have a serial killer? Well, sort of, yes. To continue on and to give you context, I'll need to explain an extraordinarily awful shit stain on this country that I call home. This is called the Canadian Indian Residential School System. At first glance, the name seems innocuous enough, excluding the word Indian, which is not an acceptable name for indigenous people here in Canada. But really, underneath that thin veil of wording came nothing short of genocide. These schools were mandatory boarding schools for indigenous people. These schools were designed to strip away any sort of semblance of indigenous culture and forcefully assimilate them into the quote-unquote dominant Canadian culture. This was done by not only the Canadian government, but the provincial government, the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and several Christian churches. I'm not talking about like specific parishes or holy houses. I'm talking complete church systems. The Roman Catholics, the Anglicans, and the Presbyterians. Like all of them. Like the main fucking organization. Before I go further into recent discoveries, I feel it's also important to note that these poor children were forcefully taken from their homes, forcefully taken from their families, moved extreme distances to reduce the chances of their families even visiting. They were deprived of their ancestral languages. They were physically and sexually abused, and they were forced to live in substandard conditions that led to ultimately disease and illness and death. Pretty shitty, huh? Well, I am just getting started. Let me jump back to the 215 bodies that were found in Kamloops. Did you think that was awful? Did you think that was it? Negative. Earlier this month, on June 4th, it was announced that they had located 104 potential graves. 78 for sure, but 104 potential graves at the Brandon Indian Residential School in the province of Manitoba. And yesterday, June 25th, 2021, it was announced that a further 751 unmarked graves were found in Merivale, Saskatchewan. That's pretty damn close to 1,100 unmarked graves. Now let's be smart and do some math here. If 3 schools have 1,100 graves, and there were roughly 150 residential schools, how many unmarked graves are there? Nobody fucking knows. There is a conservative estimate of 150,000 Indigenous children that were forced into these schools. Personally, I tend to believe that there were more. I think that 150,000 is probably a low number. Oh. Remember when I just said that nobody knows how many unmarked graves there are? Well, I kinda sorta lied to you. The Roman Catholic Church has documents. Documents that, as of the creation of this video, they refuse to hand over. But you have to question why. So, at one point in the early 20th century, there was a goofy-looking prick by the name of Adolf Hitler. He had a great time rounding up certain groups of people that he didn't like. Forcing them to live in a place that wasn't home, in a place, full of disease, mistreatment, torture, malnutrition, and even death. You get the idea. I'm sure at least one of you is wondering why I brought this up, and this is why. Hitler did this in the 1930s and 40s, okay? The federal government of Canada officially started doing the same thing around 1883. If you want to dig deeper, the churches built indigenous schools as far back as the 1600s. That is literally right when the fucking white people started coming to this country. That's a really fucking long time. There's really only one more thing that I want to touch on. That's the completely fluffy, not real, cover my ass bullshit apologies that have been given to the indigenous people as of yet. It's interesting when you actually really listen to how an apology is made. I'm talking the words used, the phrasing, and the pauses. Many times, people hear what they want to hear, right? Here's an example. Here's a quote. "We are sorry and deeply regret the pain, suffering, and alienation that so many experienced. We have heard their cries of distress, feel their anguish, and want to be part of the healing process." End quote. That's from the Roman Catholic Church. Sounds very nice and sincere, right? But for an apology, it's missing something very, very crucial. The culpability. Nowhere in that sentence is there a "sorry we fucked up" or "what we did was wrong." That's right. It's fucking bullshit. This right here is what we call linguistic manipulation, and it's complete horseshit. Until someone accepts real responsibility and offers some sort of recompense or reparation, the church can go fuck its stupid ass mitre, which is a hat. The church can go fuck its hat. I don't give a shit what church it is. If you're out there taking kids from their fucking family, from their home, and you're thousands of kilometers away, I don't even know. Like fucking, it doesn't matter how far away. It could be next door. It doesn't matter. If you're taking a kid away from his family because his culture, or her culture, just using his in a generality, you're a fucking animal. But yeah, anyways, I don't think that this apology is coming anytime soon. Hell, I don't think it's coming in my lifetime or the few after. But maybe one day we'll realize that a human being is a human being. Despite age, race, sexual orientation, religion, or whatever else you can think of, we're just ghosts driving a meat-coated skeleton made from stardust, riding on a rock, hurtling through space, as they say. Just love each other, please. See you later.